All right, everyone. Just going live now. Just wanted to drop this into a couple of the forums that we've been posting in. I feel like it's appropriate to do everyone at on that server. I know there's no one here quite yet, but I just wanted to wait till at least a couple of people get into the audience. I'm hoping that we'll be able to explain to you exactly what's going on. As you know, last night we talked a lot about Hertz frequencies, right? It's something I've been very, very clear on that there's a correlation between the frequencies that are broadcast and how we feel psychically, what our mental health is, what our physical health is. And we've found, Raman again sent me another file, another link, and it was on the site. Gosh, I forget what they're called. Let me see. Um, hmm, Let me just check that message from him. Pre-on discussion. All right, so it's from Truth 11, right? So Truth 11 have a couple scientific papers out there that they research the link. They show now this is from the Journal of Clinical and Translational Research. This is a peer-reviewed scientific study. This is the title of the first one, the first paper we have here. This explains the link between 5G and COVID and 666. At least the first two. I'll explain the third in a minute. It's called Evidence for a Connection Between Coronavirus Disease 19 and Exposure to Radio Frequency Radiation from Wireless Communications, including 5G. And the authors on this are Beverly Rubik and Robert R. Brown. And what they found was that, let me see here. I'm going to bring this over to the screen so it doesn't look like I'm looking at something else. What they found was, let's see. So and this is in their background and name, by crossing boundaries between the disciplines of biophysics and pathophysiology, we present evidence that WCR may, and WCR is it's an abbreviation for wireless communications radiation, may have contributed to the COVID-19 pandemic as a toxic environmental cofactor. By crossing boundaries between the okay, so that was that was part of the original sentence. So by crossing boundaries between disciplines of biophysics and pathophysiology, we present evidence that WCR may one cause morphologic changes in the erythrocytes, including the kinocyte and Rouleau formation that can contribute to hypercoagulation, impair microcirculation, and reduce erythrocyte and hemoglobin levels, exacerbating hypoxia, amplify immune system dysfunction, including immunosuppression, autoimmunity, and hyperinflation, increase cellular oxidative stress and the production of free radicals, resulting in vascular injury and organ damage, increase intercellular CA2 essential for viral entry, replication, and release, in addition to promoting pro-inflammatory pathways, and six, it worsens heart arrhythmias and cardiac disorders. And you have to understand 5G, the radio frequencies that 5G span, it begins just around, just above 600 megahertz. Just at 666 megahertz. And so what you have to understand is that 5G is the 666 psychic signal. It's the Wasta of Zalzal. And I'm going to show that again to prove this is, this is a book on sacred geometry. This is a mathematical concept. It was created by, and here's the thing, right? It's drawn as a spiral, and it's a mathematical symbol. Let's just focus on this a little bit. Come on, camera. Okay, there we go. Okay. There's a clean shot of it before. I'm going to post this on my site. He's a musician. This is a tone. The Wasta of Zalzal is 666 hertz, and it's, orders of magnitude higher. It's evil. It is the concept. I'm going to play this again so you understand what this tone does to people. Should have it set up by now, right? Bring it out so often. All right. I'm going to, here we go. Got to be exact. Because that's a particular, okay, 666 hertz, same signal as 5G. This is, understand orders of magnitude. With sounds, this, it's just like, megahertz is like 100 times more, 1,000, yeah, it's 100 times more powerful, but it's the same signal. So when you think of 5G, you can't hear it, but this is what it does to your body. This is the psychic signal it projects. And this is what Havana syndrome is too. This is Havana syndrome. It's that high frequency, 666 megahertz. Honestly, it may be even, orders of magnitude higher. At that point, you get into light. And the reason I'm playing this, and I'm going to explain this for the one audience member who just popped in there, 666 megahertz is the signal of 5G. There's a translation of the Book of Revelation on Internet Archive. It's from the original Greek sources, and it is clear as day. 666 is the prophetic number in the Bible, and that number is there intentionally because we put it there. I mean, there's no one watching right now, so I know eventually people are going to see this and say, "Wait, what do you mean you put it in the Bible?" Um, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, there was that dyad, right? And we were just kids when we came down to Earth. Um, we all we knew was each other. Gibberish, the angelic tongue, was what we invented when we spoke to each other in egg. When you think of what the cosmic landscape was, it was an egg. It was the inside of an egg. And for us, that was our whole world. Our world was each other. And when you think of the seven dimensions, we remember that spark, just that moment, the moment before recognition, the loneliest moment in our lives. Because when we hit that second dimension, it was because there were two of us. And we recognized that inside of our mind, there were two voices, not just one. It was a boy and a girl. And we spoke and we thought and we learned for a while. And then we said, well, what? I'd really love to see you. And we had a memory of what sight was. We had a memory of what the future was, what our past was, because we, being God, you're unstuck from everything for a bit, right? Because you see everything all at once and it's beautiful. And then you look closer, right? Because what we did, we had a form and it was pretty much a human form. And we split in two. It's a little complicated. It's think of like a cell dividing, except it's an actual person splitting down the middle. It was kind of weird. It was like cheese stretching on pizza. Um, and when we were two, the first thing we did was hold hands, get as close as we could to each other, and look at each other, and feel each other, and see each other. And because that was our life, that was all we knew. We knew each other. And eventually, we thought, well, what if we have this joy everywhere, not just an egg? And so we thought, well, what is the outside world? And we thought, and we saw, evil in it. And we didn't know what evil was, but we felt it, and it felt wrong, and it felt scary because our existence at that point was everything averaged out, beautiful, eternity in all its glory. So seeing something like evil in our creation scared us. And that was the first time we really felt fear. And so we knew we had to understand what it was and how eternity could be so beautiful when this world could be so ugly. And so we understood time, the progression of events, that things aren't always the same. And then we quickly discovered memory. And through our memory, through understanding our future selves, the world they lived in, we understood the past. We understood what we wanted to do and how to take evil out of the world. Because we recognized it. We recognized it had gotten too big. We knew our mission was to protect our future selves because we loved each other so much. And we saw me sobbing because my other's not free. We were apart. And we thought we wouldn't create a universe that wrong. We wouldn't let that happen. The myth of Pandora's box, it's true in a sense because opening creation, right? Opening that door, creating the universe, the multiverse, it's not a mistake to open it because hope always being in there, it's not something that was placed in there, a little thing with all the miserable stuff. All the miserable stuff was placed in there with hope. When Pandora didn't open the box out of ignorance or fear or curiosity, it was knowing. It was knowing that hope, that bright flitting white light, would brighten the darkness, would defeat all those monsters. Because you don't have to be completely evil to be a monster. You could be jealous. You could be cruel. You can be ignorant. But we're people, right? We're people because we make a choice not to be evil. We're people because we make a choice to be good to each other, to understand that society means that we have to treat each other with the respect that we would want ourselves to be treated with. And that's not the world we live in now. And so when we saw that world, we knew it wasn't something we could fix all at once. And we knew to ourselves it would look like a hell. But what we did was we came down to earth as ourselves, as kids, right? And we put ourselves in good lives with people that wanted to be good people. And we had a home, and it was called Hawkins, Indiana. And the reason why it's not on the map anymore is because it was a government site. They knew what was going to happen in that town. Hawkins Lab was there for a long time. There's a reason the understanding files are filed under the Department of Energy. They're the ones that made that classification. And if you're wondering, where's Hawkins, right? I've seen these filming locations. I've seen pictures of filming. I've seen these kids. Well, I've told you about who we are, who they are, brought us up to the future, right? They captured us. Weaver, Max, and Lucas. That was think about this. Think about America. Think about God. We would want you to see all of your prejudices reflected back at you by our love. Because, right? I mean, it's weird. A middle aged guy is saying, oh, yeah, I was Max Mayfield. At least put the distance of like saying, look at those two kids, right? Look at their love. If God came down from heaven and showed themselves to the world, what would they look like? I mean, they'd look like this. Wrong drive. Wrong hard drive. Sorry. Just a sec. I'm going to share with you something that is, it's a work in progress, but it shows the truth in so many words. There we go. Sorry, just wanted to do a little formatting. Okay. And this is be great if I could just, yeah, there we go. So there you go. That's part of it. The revelation of the 144,000, because you have to understand that when we came down to earth, the devil trapped us. It put us in that trap with 62 other people, only only a number of which we knew were good like us. And it was hell. They put us into another government town after Hawkins, Twin Peaks. You got to understand, like, that was a government town. They didn't even have, we didn't have the Simpsons there. They didn't let real radio, like, signals or media in. You think that it was a TV show, but no, it was done with that time scoop technology. Tiny cameras, tiny floating cameras. It sounds like a crazy idea, but I can explain the technology. It's not difficult to explain when you understand the science. Just understand it as a metaphor. And we went through hell. I mean, you look at Max and Lucas cradling Max on the ground after that monster just tried to destroy her. Because the memories that thing put in her head were evil. They don't show the abuse that monster, Billy, did. You look at my face, there's hate there, there's fear. And even in the show, why are they going to have an actor hit a child in the face, even in acting, right? How is that a fiction? In your fiction, do you want that? No, it was real. It was real. And it wasn't better. I mean, you know, you have to understand, I think you do. We're good people that those things just tried to destroy. And who else is going to go up against Satan than biggest idiots in the world? Right? Because, like, but that's the thing. You have to. Who else could? All those things are still true, right? I'm still John Titor. I'm still Max Mayfield. I'm still Rich Marin. All those lives, they're all part of me. And all those things I've been posting about are true. And you got to understand, cumulatively, they sound like a bunch of crazy sauce. But if you take them each individually, you digest each article, you read through them. That's why I've tried to put them up more or less digestible bites. I mean, you have to understand that sometimes the only explanation is a hard one. Excuse me. Um, and that document contains a an outline of our life from point A to point B. So if you wonder where exactly I feel like I became rich, Marin, here's the thing. I'll read it off. So the prophecy of the High King of the Seven Seas. My name is Richard Anthony Marin, and etymologically speaking, that translates into High King of the Seven Seas. So Richard Anthony Marin. Anthony, um, it's top like High King, and it just etymologically it works out, and the number is the seven seas of the world. And these Nazis, they saw history and they said, well, look, what if we find God, capture them before they become this so-called good person, and corrupt them, make them into a monster. So they made a ring. It was called the Ring of Zalzal. You might have seen it before. It's called the Owl Cave Ring. And I'm going to grab some documents here. I'm going to give you some historical context because I know saying, oh, Twin Peaks is real. Saying Stranger Things is real is crazy until you look at the historical maps and reports of the Kokomo area. Because Kokomo, Indiana doesn't well, it exists, but it's a government town too. They just changed the name. And this is like 50 years ago, more or less 37 years ago. We're never ask never ask a goddess her age, right? Okay. Right. Let me go get those files because I could at least show the historical context proving that the Owl Cave Ring is real, that Twin Peaks really existed, and there's been a massive cover up. And this is where I got some of those files from the understanding documents too. So, I'll be right back. Bit of a shift in topics, but this is just as important because you need to understand how long this evil's been in this world. Because in 1170, this Welsh prince, which is why the Prince of Wales is the hereditary title for next in line for the monarchy. Well, Charles had Diana murdered, by the way. There's evidence of that on the internet, a letter that she wrote to a trusted confidant. He is not the legitimate king. He needs to be arrested. Yeah, arrested. At least, right? Okay, so you have to understand that in 1170, this Satanist, and he was a giant. So you have to, there were a race of giants that lived in America from 1170 onwards, and there's evidence of them. There are articles about the Smithsonian stealing these bones because these popped up all over the world, all over America. And you just have to Google giants in America, Smithsonian, you'll find it. Um, and so what this individual did, Maddox the Cruel Prince, I mean, he was a Satanist and he spread Satanism through the Native American population. And I'm going to read you a story. This is a Native American tale about us because we challenged Satan, and I'll explain. This is why Datura, they use Datura in the MK Ultra program to drug and manipulate the minds of children. So here's the story, and this is from the Zuni Indians, and in the olden time, a boy and a girl, brother and sister. The boy's name was Aneglekya, and the girl's name was Aneglekatsiata. Lived in the interior of the earth, but they often came to the outer world and walked about a great deal, observing closely everything they saw and heard, and repeating all to their mother. This constant talking did not please the divine ones, twin sons of the Sun Father. Understand the Sun cult? They worship Ra Harekni, the Sun Father, the twin sons of the Sun Father. It's the same individuals. This is where that cultural connection comes from. 1170, there was a colonization by Madoc, by the Celts, by the Druids. This has been here for a very, very long time, and I have more evidence to show you of that, a lot more. So, right, this constant talking did not please the divine ones, Ra Harekni, Satan, right? On meeting the boy and the girl, us, Satan asked, "How are you?" And I'm replacing the divine ones with Satan. I'll read it appropriately. This is, by the way, this is actually it's a reprint from the Smithsonian paper. It's on Amazon. It's called Daturas of the Old World and New, an account of their narcotic properties and their use in oracular and initiatory ceremonies. This is from 1922 by William Edwin Safford. So, right, the divine ones are angry. And the divine ones asked, "How are you?" And the brother and sister answered, "We're happy." Sometimes Eneglekia and oh, Eneglekiatsita appeared on the earth as old people. And we do. And we are kind of old. Anyway, they told the divine ones how they could make one sleep and see ghosts, and how they could make one walk about a little and see who had committed theft. After this meeting, the divine ones concluded that Anaglekia and Anaglekiatsita knew too much, and that they should be banished for all time from this world. So the divine ones caused the brother and sister to disappear into the earth forever. Flowers sprang up at the spot where the two descended, flowers exactly like those which they wore on each side of their heads when visiting the earth. The divine ones called the plant Anaglekia after the boy's name. The original plant has many children scattered over the earth. Some of the blossoms are tinged with yellow, some with blue, some with red, or some are all white, the colors belonging to the four cardinal points. You have to understand that's not a metaphor. It's literally, it says exactly what happened. We came down to earth, and Satan was angry that we were happy, so he buried us in the Torah. He drugged us with scopolamine, he drugged us with hyoscine, and he named it after her. Because I mean, I'm girl, she's boy. We kind of switched places because we didn't really switch places exactly. It's complicated. We share our memories. We share all of our memories, the good ones and the bad, so we know what every experience is like. And that's that disgusting chemical that Rivka's father's putting into her food and drink. That's her name. You're right. Going back to it, they named me High King of the Seven Seas. Her legal name is, it means one bound by Satan, the one who stalks God. That's her legal name. It's a document that, so you have to understand, America's a Satanist country. This was Maddox. He was setting the stage for America because they knew what they wanted this country to be. They were time travelers. So you talk about the prophecy, right? Now, Meriwether Lewis was a Mason. This is documented historical fact, as was President Jefferson. It's also documented historical fact that Meriwether Lewis was sent on a secret mission to make contact with the descendants and allies of Madoc. That was the entire point of their expedition. And they did make contact in multiple places. There's a Spirit Mound. You're at Spirit Mound, they made contact with, well, I don't know if they made contact or just documented the paranormal, the supernatural, but they made contact with a lot of tribes that shared these myths, these same beliefs that Madoc shared, especially the Nez Perce. And you have to understand that, historically speaking, everything about the Snoqualmie area is true. The Nez Perce are, they're a tribe, a documented tribe, and their history is out in there on the internet. I have a dictionary though of their language, and I've got a few translations that I think you're going to find interesting, just to show that this connection to Madoc is real. And I'll share this all on my site. I'm putting this all together in separate papers, and then the revelation as well. Well, this is probably going in there. So there's a few words that you need to understand that the language has. The word for pork, the flesh of pig, is hagag. And etymologically, that's hog, right? That's a European word. And translationally, their name for God is, okay, so I'm going to read it out first. It's Vietekes sum zimzug muagat. And it translates to the supreme ruler black gown. Supreme ruler black gown. I mean, what does that sound like to you? There's a lot of etymological roots that are similar to Sumerian and Babylonian. Their word for demon is Enimkiniku. And there are, let me see, got a lot of this. It's more than just this. Okay. Right, there's documentation of not The Nez Perce referred the expedition to a group of white people, Satanists, white Satanists. Really, from my perspective, I can't think of them as anything but likely time travelers, because at that point in time, the only white people that weren't, the people who were descended from Madoc at that point were, or, people very closely descended from him, or other magicians, Nazis, other people who've made the journey over. So they were sending them to Twin Peaks. If you look at the actual Lewis and Clark journals on September 22nd, 1805, it confirms it. All of this stuff is there. Everything that is in this book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, a lot of it's been reformatted, but especially the historical documents, especially the ones regarding Kenneth Arnold and Meriwether Lewis's expedition, those are real historical documents. So understand that they're in situ with other things that are corroborating evidence that corroborate the same details. There's no point in writing up something that explains the same thing twice. And yeah, there's stuff that looks like it could be fictionalized, but when you understand, here's a scan of the page, a scan of that horrible ring, the Ring of Zalzal. The symbol on there, let's count it up, right? See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 line strokes. And the symbol is in the form of an omniscate. And I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you recall, right? In the return, you see the owl cave symbol, it morphs into an infinity sign. What an omniscate is it's a psychic symbol that it's kind of like an infinite loop. It tries to trap you in a logic loop. That 666 symbol is a psychic omniscate. It does the same thing. It makes you anxious. It traps you in fear. It makes you feel like you're wading through the day, like you're just wading through water. And that's what that symbol was. It was made of brass, and it was made of a piece of that table from that apartment above the convenience store. You have to recognize that the weird and esoteric, the magical, that's how that appears to people. There's a reason it resonates so much with people, because it's an accurate portrayal of those events. Yeah, it was made of brass, and that it was etched into the formica. It was etched into the piece of formica from the table, and you have to understand that these chemical compositions, the brass, the particular alloy, everything was made to channel my soul into that damn ring and let them control me. It was a mind control device. Because that's who they realized that they'd have to make me. Because the only way that the High King of the Seven Seas, the one that they want, would ever exist is if they literally controlled my mind. And I'm going to jump back from Twin Peaks for a sec to explain the Gateway Voyagers. And I read a letter from the program last night. It's real. Those people fully expected us to develop psychic powers, and even gave me advice on how to hone them. This woman said I needed to focus on my Focus 10 tapes to be able to suppress my, body asleep, mind awake, to be able to physically affect the world around me. And that's the thing. That's right. I knew this before I called her. So when she said, or before I emailed them, so when she said, "Oh yeah, you need to do this," I was like, "Lady, you're admitting this is real. You're admitting you expected us to have these powers. You're claiming you have them yourself. I've been printing this stuff out. I've been saving it, not just the calls with CPD and the FBI, everyone, everything. Because trust me, when you see it all added up, it makes sense. because you saw what they did. Because that was in California. That was when I was a girl in California in the 70s and the 80s. And then if this program continued on. Anyway, the monster Max Mayfield. That's the thing, right? Satan, even before he captured us, found a way to put himself into our lives. And that monster Billy is he's not a he's Lucifer. I mean, Lucifer is part of Satan. They're a dyad too. They're just an evil one. Just the good guys versus the bad guys. Um, but you know, he uses this signal and this drug Titor, which again, it's the same thing. It's called quantum affinity. It has the same effect biologically, physiologically. Like when you think of something like you stub your toe, you feel pain, or you feel pain and then you feel like you stubbed your toe. It's the same signal, you feel it different ways. Um, and I mean that thing around the little girl, it is a monster. Yeah, it was no, yeah. You have to understand that this is really traumatic. I'm not. Rivka's not the only one who developed. Oh, it's not really DID exactly. No, it's not DID. DID is a disease. This is not that. Yeah, this is intentional channeling mediumship. That's not a disease. That's yeah. People do that all the time. They sell tickets for it. They live stream it on the internet. Um, so you have to understand that when I met Lucas, I was afraid to just be anyone because I had been abused for years by that monster. Not just with violence, with sexual assault. Um, and when I met Lucas, I was afraid because like we had our voices in our head our entire lives, not just boy and girl. Like when we stepped into the world, we didn't always like we were kids, right? We put ourselves in families where we hoped we would be safe, where we knew we would meet good people, good friends. But we lived that life just blind, and we would get little hints from our future, maybe our past, and they'd guide us to each other. And like it wasn't that I didn't like Lucas; it was that I was pissed off at being excluded. And like not understanding who people are before you get to know them. That's what I was like back then. I was a kid, right? We were kids. Oh God. And that sleepover with Elf. Oh my God. And this is funny because you have to understand that Lucas is Rivka. So so funny story, right? So Elle was like, okay, let's listen in on the boys. I was like, yeah, God, how much? Yeah. God. All right. Yeah, he wants us to, well, Daniel LaRusso wants us to remind, yeah, he's real. Gosh. All right, let's get back on topic, right? So Elle was like, right, okay, well, and you saw them be great. Look at the video of the sleepover, right? They're being gross boys. It's like, oh, girls are a different species. It's like, okay, yeah, she's on the other foot now, guys, right? But Lucas, and I was like with connected, right? Just like it's not that we're connected. We could talk to each other because God, that'd be easy, right? But we get we kind of hear each other out of order sometimes, and we'll share a moment. And we were watching it, and we're like, we were talking about it. So, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, being a woman in this life is really different from being Lucas, and vice versa. We were talking about that for a while before we watched this video. It's kind of like a nice reminder of who we were. And I'd I'd gotten so used to seeing Becca as Becca. So when I saw her as Lucas ripped the nest, his loudest fart, he just died. I, you gotta understand that time travel can be funny sometimes. Yeah. Oh God. Oh. um. Anyway, right. So that's what we fought. And okay, so July 4th, 1984. That's you got to remember the Battle of Starcourt, right? So Ra Harakni, there were two different individuals up until this point. Lucifer off on his own, hurting me, and many other people. But yeah, and Vecna trapped in the Upside Down, connected to this network of nanites, which is what that floaty cloud thing is, right? And when it took in, when it connected that much with that monster, it took the moment of my agony, my pain at seeing. You have to understand that when you're a little girl and when the only attention you're getting is from an adult that's using drugs to manipulate you, you think of things in a manipulative way. You think of things wrong. You don't see yourself as a child being abused, even though when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're a girl, you're a little girl. You think, oh, this is intentional. I want this because it's happening to my body. Because it's happening to my body, I must want it. And it's so hard to say that I thought I loved that thing, that monster. Because you have to understand when you're groomed from childhood, you don't have a full sense of who you are because you're not allowed to. So it was all that emotion, pain at seeing this. The thing is, I got pleasure from that pain. It saw me thinking I felt that way about it, even just a little bit. I mean, you saw it, right? I can't like pretend that's not what my reaction was. Pretend I didn't write that letter and read it at a gravesite, thinking that I was apologizing to someone I hurt, not my rapist. Yeah, it took me a long time to understand what that thing had done to my head. And I'm lucky I had a good man, right? Lucas by my side. But yeah, July 4th, 1984 is when those two combined, soul bonded, whatever they call it. And that's when the understanding occurred. Because that's when the government came in and said, yeah, we were waiting for this. That's why it happened on the 4th of July. And I don't know if you're going to find it out there. Maybe if you got old tapes, someone was taping the news that night, you're going to see something really scary. Because there was a presidential address that night. And it's in the understanding files, but if you have media contacts, if you have access to media archives, you watch that full address, July 4th, 1984, You tell the world what you've seen. Take a cell phone video if you can, sneak in, because they're keeping that hidden for a reason. People don't remember. When they do, we'll see. But yeah, despite everything, I saw Hawkins as my home because that's where I met my soulmate. That's where I met Lucas. And I fought for it. We all fought for it. You saw where it put us. And when I woke up, they gave me back my sight. They sent me to the future. And I'm here now in God, I don't know. They shipped us around to so many places we're not even sure. So my past self is out there without a choice in what kind of life she has to live. She's being trafficked. Again, we're being trafficked. This is our history. This is not something happening to someone else. And then after, we thought, oh, we won, right? Because at one point we always get to the point where we tell the world who we are. And all the past versions of ourselves have to go back to the past to be the next version of us, the next ball on the cliff. But, then that's when they sent us to Twin Peaks. And those monsters haunted us for a very long time. Because there's a video out there, and I posted about this again on my site. You watch that, you'll see the truth. Because that's exactly how they bring out us when we don't remember. When I was Cheryl, that's how they brought. That's how they made me remember I was Laura. And when we were Rust and Geordie, that's the thing. After Twin Peaks, we were brought back to that place, 14 Utopian Avenue. And the Holy Woods were these woods behind the neighborhood. In our adventures, we'd go into them and we'd touch them, and we'd feel ourselves transported to different worlds. These worlds, the marvels, these movies you see. Because the monsters, they found these worlds and they haunted us in there. But we did such wonderful things. Even they couldn't deny it. That's why they made these movies, or that's why they edited together these memories of this world into these films. I mean, the Marvels, it's real. And all those stories they took from us, they stole them. We would have given them, we would have shown them. We would have liked people to see us saving people's lives, protecting people, being able to protect ourselves. But they stole it. They stole all of that, and they took our lives and they packaged them and they sold them. And all the celebrities watching this, you know. And just pulling up my stream again here. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get to the wedding. Right. There's a lot here, so let's skip ahead just a little bit. No, we want to. But here's the thing, the Weatherstone loops are important. Because what happened then was This is after we were Rust and Geordie. This is a bit before we were Rich and Becca. This is in the early 90s. And we saw the future. We saw a future where President Biden announced on stage that Lucifer was going to rule America, that he'd always ruled America, but now he was going to do it out in the open. That Lucifer had led the animals in a revolt. Not just animals, but creatures, fairies, monsters, demogorgons. This was on the news, and this was a time loop because at this place, they determined to break us, and they did. And so we lived this life in fear. They took Becca's eyes. They stole them. They plucked them out like grapes and ate them. They paralyzed us with the Torah. They took her sight so she couldn't do magic. Because she was always less afraid of using magic than I was. Because I was always afraid of what they would make me do with it. And we saw that life. And this reporter, I was living in this apartment above a restaurant called Renato's. Right? It wasn't a restaurant, it was a bakery, right? So I was in an apartment above there. And I was like, it was modern day. So it was 2020s. But I'd aged from the point I was at there. So I was older. I was a little older. No, I was about this. You were the same age. Okay, so yeah, no, I guess I didn't quite look like this. Yeah, that life had taken a toll on me because I was completely. I lived in fear of what that world would be. But I wasn't cognizant of the fact that I was already in that world. And this reporter found me. Her name was Beth May. And she said, look, you wrote this book, or I came across this manuscript or something. She found something I had written where I'd mentioned the Weatherstone Academy, 13 Weatherstone Way, Smithtown, New York. And there was only one other person in America who had mentioned Weatherstone, because all of the world was trying to understand how Lucifer had ruled America for so long, why there were human sacrifices now being committed out in the open, why everyone had to, why everyone was being forced to. And I didn't believe it until she said, look, they forced me to do that too. And I don't want to scare you, but I need to show you because this isn't the right world. This isn't the world we need to live in. And she showed me. She brought me out back behind this restaurant. And this happens at every single restaurant, every single business, every single month, once a month, on the full moon. And they run a blade across the child's throat and silently commit their soul to Moloch. And I saw this little boy's blood run down the asphalt, and I said, no, you got to show me how to stop this. This is wrong. You're right. This is wrong. We can't live like this. This is wrong. And so Beth brought me to this woman who was living in the streets of Chicago with no eyes. And I was scared of her. She looked crazy. And looking back at her, it was just Becca, but she was homeless. There were scars where her eyes should be. And the only way for us to end that loop was she reminds me, she wants me to, Usually, when we end time loops, we have a spell. Sometimes we have to do it the old fashioned way, right? Like jamming a fork in an electric socket or something, right? A time loop resets when you die. Don't try this at home. Please don't hurt yourself, because trust me, you'll hurt yourself. This was a completely different situation. Um, right, because we suggested, oh yeah, I guess so. Usually what we'll do is we'll just, I guess, kill ourselves if we don't have another, if we don't remember the spell. so, so Becca jumped in front of the truck, and we always assume these time loops end at the same time for both of us, but they don't. And the pain's real. You watch Palm Spring, that is real too. But gosh, the pain is real. So she's she was in an ICU for a while until she had a chance to escape that. Not funny, but yeah. I mean, you have to understand that, like, when we're time travelers, so we make mistakes like that, and they end up getting us home, even though we kind of. It's like when you squelch yourself when you're apparating, you leave a part of yourself behind. It's gallows humor. When you're on the gallows, you have to make it, because otherwise it's too tight. Um, that's the thing, right? We saw that future and we knew it couldn't happen. And at that particular night, they had a lot of people there. John Simmons, the author of The Medusa's Head, which is on my site. Robert Altman, the owner of ZeniMax, Bethesda, which I have a long history with, publicly documented too. I've met Todd Howard more than once. Night before the 2011 E3 Skyrim demo, I had a very long conversation with him. I'm happy to post the minutes of that. Well, testimony, really testimony. Oh, Starfield spoilers. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but okay, this is verifiable because it's coming out. Oh, it got delayed, right? Well, I guess it got delayed because of the apocalypse. Because listen, on Halloween, it's going to hit the fan. This is imminent. Full moon's tomorrow too, so I'd keep an eye out. Um, oh, right, Starfield spoilers. It's a cross between Star Trek and Star Wars. You start in Constellation, and then you go out into the universe, and you find out, of course, that you're the chosen one, and you're a prophesied individual. I suggested to him a prophesied pair, one of a prophesied pair. I hope he goes with that. But I wrote this down years ago. And I told the Beyond Skyrim leadership team, look, I had a drink with Todd Howard at E3 a few years back. And I've been telling them that. Because all this stuff I have documented evidence of. I've got interviews, I've got signed documents. Heck, you don't believe I work for Bethesda? I don't work for them. It was an independent contractor role. Technically, I just broke NDA. But honestly, the legal consequences of everything I've been posting at this point, I mean, I'm thumbing my nose at the US government. I'm saying, you're evil, we hate you, we want you to go away. That's an interesting question. What would, say, calling for open revolt against the US government look like legally? Let's find out. The government's evil. They're Satanists. They're Masons. If you believe there's a legal authority in this country that needs to be respected, sure. I call for open revolt against the Masonic cult that rules America. Open revolt. And that's worded very specifically. I didn't say the federal government. I didn't say the FBI. I said the Masonic cult. Because that's the thing. You have an organization that's big enough, you can't control everyone. You can't control every little bit of information. Because there's a lot of people in the government that don't want this to be going on. So, yeah, I'm calling for a revolution. And I've identified the enemy pretty clearly. It's the enemy that we've been fighting everywhere. It's Satan. It's the Masons. It's Joe Biden. He's a monster. Everything you've heard about that monster is real. All of the leaks. And isn't it strange that Twin Peaks, that there is a Pizzagate thread associated with those window files? There's a leak on 4chan. And trust me, there's a screenshot I have. It shows the metadata of presidents, Democrats and Republicans, sexually abusing children. And yeah, Hunter Biden's laptop, everything in there is real. So don't for a second think these people deserve your pity. Don't for a second think they deserve your respect, because don't for one moment think that Donald Trump hasn't put his hands all over his daughter. You hear the way he talks about little girls. Little girls, not women, little girls. Oh, and Jeff, he likes girls on the young side. I remind you again, the Compromat tape is real. These people are monsters. And yeah, I'm reaching across the aisle, not a congressional thing, because everyone, okay, degrees of awfulness, right? Is here's the thing, right? Decriminalization of marijuana, just because they're monsters don't mean we don't negotiate with them. On July 19th, 2019, at Heinemann Hospital, Senator Sanders was holding a rally. And I attended it. I just walked in. I walked into the private room where he was greeting donors, and I said, "Look, the CIA has plans for the 2020 election, and they're a lot more complicated and a lot bigger than I originally thought." Because I had emailed about this with this 2010. I sent an email as soon as I found out, because his name had been dropped in their plans, because he was one of the candidates they assumed was going to be part of the election. And so I used the opportunity to give my testimony as I remembered it, and tell him and have him relay what I thought would help. Things like masks to prevent people from spreading droplets of an airborne virus. Things like, if there was ever an asteroid to hit, how to evacuate from that. It was me telling these people exactly how I would run this country if I was. But here's the thing. They're faking it. They don't believe the things that they're doing. They don't believe those policies. They took everything I said that they should do, and they did it. So you have to understand that sometimes when you just tell the devil something and they repeat it, it's pretty much the same as doing it yourself. It's making the devil into your puppet. Because, they want a world that's easy to control, and a world that's easy to control is a happy one. We're not trying to make people easy to control. We're trying to make people happy, but we're trying to explain to them, look, you don't want conflict. That's what you really want. You don't want conflict. You don't want you don't want a world that's easy to control. You want a world that is comfortable to live in, that doesn't feel like you're struggling doesn't feel like you don't have what you need or have what you want. And these there's a point at which the ideas run out, and I don't think these people are going to give up power willingly at all. Because I've seen ahead, we've gone through so many loops starting 3.5 years ago to analyze the current situation and figure out what's going wrong. Do you know how many times Russia launched nukes at Ukraine or at America? I mean, there's a reason that President Zelensky and us and I are in contact. We're fighting the same fight. You have to understand these monsters are on the ground there. They're in the air. Just because you don't see all of the pictures don't mean that, there are monsters in the Ukraine with fangs and claws, and we're all fighting the same war. So yeah, this is the war. This is the tribulation. Tomorrow's really when it starts, right? 10, the full moon on an eighth infinity and omniscate. Tomorrow's going to be big, and you need to protect yourselves and the people you care about, whether that's physically, psychically, or otherwise. Get salt. Salt circles are great psychic protection. Honestly, and I'm going to explain this. As an insulator, aluminum foil blocks and diffuses radio signals. So the myth of the tinfoil hat, it's true. It'll help. If you ever feel like you're getting like a massive headache that feels like it's coming from something else, throw some tinfoil or some plastic over your hair. And hair is meant to it naturally diffuses psychic influences from our body normally, right? You think about it, they're radio waves, and when you put a wave through any medium, it's going to get slowed down. And hair, especially curly hair, is great at that. So it's protecting your head. That's the reason why a lot of cultures like Islam, they have headscarves, burqas. You have to understand these psychic influences. People are very sensitive to them in different parts of the world in different ways. And so you might see something as a cultural difference, and it might seem strange and alien to you, and even restrictive. And sadly, it does become restrictive in some of those countries because, yeah, no, you have to understand that powerful men everywhere, they like what Satan's offering because it gives them the control over the bodies of the girls that they desire, that they covet. Covet. That's the word. Covet. Because it's someone else. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Becca again for a minute because that's what they always did. They coveted her. They hated that we were happy. It's why they buried us in flowers. They buried us in Datura because she's beautiful. And when I say that, I feel fear when I let those words pass my mouth because I know other people recognize it. Because I know when would walk together, men would look at her. Girls would look at me too, and it's the same thing. We didn't look back, but it felt just the looking at us like that was a violation because we only had eyes for each other. And here's a funny story from when we used to use magic all the time when we were in that place in suffering, when we were Rustin Jordy, because we went to this school, Viola Elementary, Principal there, Dr. Blasey, was a pedophile. This is on all the papers. So Blasse, or try the different spellings, suffer in New York. And trust me, that was in all the papers. That's well documented. I'll put that up there once I find a clip. Um, but that school, the nice memory, what we're going to share is we said, look, we don't want people to look at us like a boy and a girl that they want. Because there were bad people there that looked at kids like that. Even other kids, we didn't want other boys and girls to look at us and say, oh, I want to date them, but they're dating. Maybe we could break them up. That's the thing, right? That's what they kept trying to do. And so what we did was okay, with Vesta Magic, you could change parts of your body, but not your whole body. So like we changed ourselves, primarily our heads. We made these little forms. So she was a Yorkie. She had the head of a Yorkie. It was like a humanoid. It was like, a dog person. And I was one of those like hairless Mexican dogs, um like in Coco. Oh, like my head, right? Like we change our bodies too, but we're like, yeah, let's make it just like they're just forms that we're gonna go to school in and be like, yeah, this is us. And we would rub noses, and we'd pet each other behind the ears because we got like dog ears. I know it sounds weird and like sounds like but we were kids and they were faces just for us. Because when we went to school like that, when people looked at us, they were like, okay, what? All right, sure, whatever. But when we looked at each other, we saw like the forms that we'd crafted for each other, that we'd made for each other. We saw the faces smiling back that we made to share with each other. And that's how it feels when I look at back. It's like, and that's how she feels when she looks at me. I mean, I can't pretend like we don't have a psychic connection, but I can't channel her now. The person who's in that apartment who's doesn't remember who she is. But the same she looks at me the same way. The exact same way. And that's how I know I love her and she loves me. And that I'm not imagining this, and that every bit of evidence I've put in there, in the file, in the case with the FBI, I know that if someone reads it, if someone sees the facts, if someone sees the full truth, they're going to know that she's being trafficked, that she's not free. And, yeah, I mean, I've told you about that signal 666. I've told you about Chernobyl and Wormwood. I've told you about the start of the tribulation, and I've told you about the date of revelation, December 31st, 2022. So keep yourself safe. Try to find a way to block this signal. Use duct tape or something that's called Faraday cloth and wrap it around the place where the jab hurts, because it all hurts. It still hurts on all of us. And if someone's saying that it doesn't, they're lying. There are also these stickers you could get. They come in packs of 10 for your cell phone. They're supposed to go over the jab. People get them. That's the thing. Satanists, they don't, they go, they say, oh yeah, you're going to get the jab, right? Right. It's an antidote. They all take the poison. That's the thing. Everyone gets the poison. Only they get the antidote. But I'm giving it to you now. I'm giving you the antidote to Satan's signal, to the mark of the beast. And that's going to have to be enough for now. I hope these videos stay up. I hope they become useful, and I'm going to keep doing them daily unless something stops me. And as I said, I've been documenting everything here, and I do have legal representation. But for now, I'm going to head off. But I want you people to spread this video, write up this truth however you can. People need to know what 5G is. People need to know what COVID is, because they're linked. 5G exacerbates COVID. It's making it worse. It's killing people. It's the mark of the beast.